What's up, YouTube? Tonight I'm going to be talking about how I think Walter White might have fallen down the path of the dark side, just like Anakin Skywalker. Before I show you the comparisons, let's look at a quote from Yoda. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. This is a low quality image. Yeah, so this is going to be very important to note and remember while I go through the PowerPoint. It's a very good, rubric to base all of this off of. Alright, so we start off with the early years, the potential years. Walter White, by the way, this is a picture of Bryan Cranston in his 20s or maybe teen years. And then we have young Anakin Skywalker. Now, these two have one thing in common, their potential. And potential is actually the first step into going into the dark side. It's the first step to anything. Then we have the early years. Still, they have potential. They have the whole world ahead of them. Walter White working at Gray Matter. Anakin just off the pod race. He's still a kid, still on Tatooine. And this is where things start to get shaky and a little bit of tragedy happens. Rejection. Rejection, I think, is another part of going down to the dark side. They both deal with it. For example, Walter White, you guys know the whole Elliot and Gretchen situation. Gray Matter love triangle. Walter White's partner in Gray Matter was Elliot. Walter White was dating Gretchen while working with Elliot. Once he left because of pride reasons, Walter White didn't like dating a girl that was richer than him, basically. And then after he left, he kind of just unofficially broke up because he left. And then he left Gray Matter, and Gretchen and Elliot hooked up. That's what happened. Gretchen looks really good in this picture. Let's look at Anakin. Anakin gets rejected by the Council of Jedi. They say no to Anakin's training. They're like, nope, this kid can't be a Jedi. Yoda's like, I just have a bad Force sense. Bad things are gonna happen. You're gonna go closer to the path of the dark side, closer down the path, farther down the path to the dark side. And he mentions fear. He mentions fear being his first step into going into the dark side, which I don't blame him because he left his mother and he's on a new freaking planet, a city planet, Coruscant. That's a scary planet. He's in a room with a bunch of weirdos. He's in a room with a long-necked freaking green goblin, a cone head, and a dangerous black man. I'm kidding. Joke. Going forward, we have the new lifestyle. Walter White's now a chemistry teacher. Anakin's now a Jedi Knight. They're on their new path. Things have changed. They're in a new environment. Everything's going well, but they're not really satisfied with their situation. Walter White, he's getting paid not enough money. And, Anakin's having emotional troubles, as we can tell from this image. He's rolling in a field of flowers with Padme, so you can see he's just thugging it out. Now this is a turning point in both characters. Anger. Walter White's first big opponent is Tuco Salamanca, and in episode 6 of season 1 we first see the true Heisenberg as what people believe. This might be the first example of Heisenberg, and in this scene in Attack of the Clones, Anakin attacks a freaking Tusken Raider camp, and he kills everybody, not just the men, but the women and the children. He's pissed off and he wants revenge. His mom just died in his arms, and I don't blame him. I'd do the same thing. I think we all would do the same thing, and if you don't, you would have to be insane. Walter White's first act of aggression, major act of aggression, is throwing chemicals on the ground. That's it. It's his first aura scene. New lifestyle. Everything's going good. After they meet Gus, Jesse and Walter White get a deal with Gus. Walter White starts working in the lab in season 3. Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars, he's just cruising. They're both just cruising, going along with their life. They're settled in this new lifestyle. Anakin's a high-ranked Jedi Knight. Heisenberg, Walter White, he is a high-ranked meth cook. And they're chilling in their environment. And I would say this is Walter White's prime in Breaking Bad. I think this is really prime Breaking Bad. Back in the good old days when Walter White was wearing a hazmat suit, hanging out in the lab under the ground and the laundromat, cooking with Jesse and Gale, that's peak Breaking Bad in my opinion. That's how things should have stayed if everything just went well. Same thing with Clone Wars Anakin. He's just doing missions. He's just doing Call of Duty missions. Everything's great. Here is another big turning point in both characters. Walter White's biggest opponent of all time was Gus Fring. Walter White ended up killing Gus Fring because, leverage reasons, kill or be killed reasons. Anakin Skywalker killed Count Dooku, his biggest opponent yet. And we can see that these two moments are very important to both characters. They are defeating their biggest and final opponents. This is big for their character arcs. Now, in season 5 of Breaking Bad, everything's going well. Walter White's the big boss. No more bad guys to deal with. Same thing with Anakin. Anakin's got everything figured out. Revenge of the Sith. Yep. Revenge of the Sith. He's got everything figured out. He's got a kid on the way. Walter White's doing good, making a lot of money. He's got the whole evidence thing destroyed. Everything's great. Anakin Skywalker's happy and pretty fulfilled. But here's when things get a little tricky. Walter White and Anakin Skywalker have a big fat sense of pride. Say My Name, episode 7, is one of the most important episodes in Breaking Bad. And same thing with Anakin Skywalker. He starts to become defiant, more defiant than ever. He starts to make his own decisions, and he actually starts to distance from Obi-Wan Kenobi later in the film. And this is a very, very important turning point in both characters, because they're like, you know what? Nothing that I do can be wrong. I can't be wrong. What can I do that's so wrong? I know what I'm doing. I'm competent. I'm in a leadership position. I'm the man. I got a big brain. I got a big ding dong in my pants. Everything's great. Now, this is when things start to get dark. Walter White and Anakin Skywalker start to partner up with bad forces. Walter White decides, you know what, Jesse, he's becoming a liability and a threat to me and my family. Anakin's like, this Palpatine guy, he's not too bad. I can hear him out. Maybe he's got some good takes. Anakin Skywalker got Mace Windu killed. He's brainwashed as brainwashed. Walter White's not brainwashed. He knows what he's doing is wrong, but he thinks he's actually doing the right thing for himself. Now, these two characters start to reach the lowest of their low. Walter White finally decides, enough of Jesse. He's been my partner. He's been through it all. We've been through so much. But now it's time for him to go. Jesse, you still owe me. Anakin Skywalker is like, enough of Obi-Wan, he's gotta go. I gotta slash him up on this lava planet. He is going against the Jedi. I want to rule the world. I want to be big boss. Everyone needs to listen to me. And this is absolutely when they reach their lowest of their low. However, after hate comes suffering. I just switched characters. That's bad. I don't like that. Anyways, Walter White and Darth Vader start to experience the suffering from their actions. Hank dies. His brother-in-law dies. Padme dies. You can see a relation. Their family dies. They lose their family, and it all comes crashing down. At this moment, the ground beneath their feet has crumbled. Nothing matters anymore. Their pride means nothing. Their anger, hate, and fear means nothing. They're now in the suffering mode. And they are now definitely feeling the bad effects of going to the dark side. And you really gotta feel bad for these characters because Walter White is cooked. Darth Vader is absolutely cooked. And they are in a bad situation. And they are just devastated. It's really sad. They are in a completely new chapter in their life. And they can't go back. Walter White is now Mr. Lambert. This is after the time skip, of course. And Anakin is now Darth Vader after the time skip. We can see that these two characters in this frame, in this slideshow, they just look very similar. They actually look like Darth Vader. They both look like Darth Vader. They are now the bad guys. They have that bad guy label over their head. They know they have that bad guy label over their head too. They still hold lots of pride, but they know that their past is absolutely tainted. They are completely tainted. They have just absolute stain all over them, and it's really sad to think about it, but finally we have redemption, the redemption arc. Walter White sacrifices himself, unintentionally sacrifices himself for Jesse. Obi-Wan, nope. Darth Vader intentionally, well, no, he unintentionally sacrifices himself for Luke. Walter White saves Jesse from the you-know-what gang. Darth Vader saves Luke from the Emperor. This is super important for these characters because they go out with a bang. They go out with a good, happy bang. And, yeah, it's a great story for both of these characters. Both of these characters are very well written. They're extremely well-written characters, and I think that this is important to note. And if we want to look back at the Yoda quote, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, he never said that suffering leads to redemption, but in this case it does. Walter White and Darth Vader, or as we know as Anakin, redeem themselves. There's a reason why these stories are very famous in pop culture, in media, and they are never going to be forgotten. I believe that Walter White and Darth Vader followed the path to the dark side. Well, we know. What am I saying? Anakin, we all know Anakin followed the path to the dark side. But if we go back to the first slide in the beginning of all of it, I think that Heisenberg and Darth Vader have a very similar story. Absolutely, absolute cinema. Absolutely, absolute cinema. I am rolling in my chair. Absolute cinema. I want to end off this video with a prop. A screaming goat. Let's do it in the mic. Have a great night, everybody.